Okay, so welcome to another online event with the Dublin Coding School. This time it's part of our industry series where we're going to be looking at industries that are currently hiring or looking at developing tech elements to them and where there are jobs in technology. We expect to have events on the computer gaming industry in the future, also banking. But at the moment, we're going to be looking at tonight the property sector and an area of it called prop tech, which maybe you have heard of or maybe you haven't, but after this evening, we hope that you certainly will have. And before I get into it and introduce our speakers, I'll just quickly talk about who we are, the Dublin Coding School. So we're a new coding school in Dublin. We offer courses online. We will have a facility in the future when it's safe to do so. I know everyone's on lockdown right now. And we have 3 other schools throughout Europe. Been operating for 5 years, about 4,000, 5,000 graduates. Our courses are in data analytics, web development, software testing, the basics of coding. We're also developing things in other areas like UX design and cybersecurity. We also have what's called a career center as well. So all of our graduates are enrolled in that, and we help you with your CVs, your online presence, and we partner with hiring companies who tip us off when they have roles, and we also try and get those CVs out, try and find you a role. So that's a bit about who we are. I'll maybe speak a bit about that at the end. I won't bore you now. I think what I'd like to do is quickly just go around and introduce our speakers, introduce them and also give them a chance to introduce themselves. So I'll first hand over to Carol Tallon, who is the CEO of PropTech Ireland, just to maybe introduce herself. Oh, by the way, I'd like to thank Carol because she brilliantly pulled this speaker panel together and really helped out. So I'd like to thank her for that, but also hand over for her introduction.
Thank you, Luke. And again, I think you might be giving me more credit than I deserve, but thank you. So my name is Carol Tallon. I'm CEO of Property District. Part of that is what started as a CSR initiative about 5 years ago, PropTech Ireland. And through PropTech Ireland, we tried to support tech innovators who are designing solutions for the built environment. So whether it's planning, construction, property, or any element of the life cycle of the property. So I think we're going to be hearing more about that today. So I'm delighted to see 2 very strong prop tech and construction tech companies on the panel today. So they'll be able to share some really on the ground insights.
Thank you very much. And now we'll just go over to Damien Browne, who is the CEO of prop tech company Standard Access, just for a quick introduction. Thank you.
Thanks very much. My name is Damien and I'm the founder of Standard Access. I spent all of my career working in commercial real estate, buying and selling commercial property investments in Ireland and in the UK. And that's where the idea came for the Standard Access technology company to fix the problems I had every day in managing keys, collecting rent, managing access to buildings, and trying to manage properties being in one place, trying to manage 15 sites across Ireland and the UK. So it's basically, we invented a system to manage the operations of access control, rental payments, and so yeah, that's what we do. We're based in Dingle, County Kerry. We're a team of 7 at the moment, all working remote. And my colleague Mihai, Penica, our CTO, is on this call as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're going to learn a bit more about Standard Access a bit later when we talk about your case study. But I'd like to hand over now to your colleague, Mihai, who you said is your CTO and head of web development, who's there maybe to introduce yourself as well. Thank you. I think you're just on mute there, Mihai. If you could just maybe unmute yourself and you'll come on. Thank you.
I think this is the most used words lately, like you're on mute. So yeah, like I was saying, my name is Mihai Penica. I'm the CTO of Standard Access. Well, I basically work as a CTO in a different startup before joining Standard Access. I've developed some core insurance software. I also developed some electronic devices, IoT devices, using different type of technology, and developing also software, like using again different type of technologies, starting from embedded to web technologies, or any embedded to web technologies. Okay.
Thank you very much. So you're a fantastic example of how someone trained in tech has carved a senior career path in the property industry. and we'll probably talk a bit about that a bit later. I'll now hand over to our final speaker, Houssem Jerbi, who is the CEO of Smart PMO and a very well-known expert on AI technology as well, I believe. It'd be great just to hear a bit about who you are and your background, Houssem.
Thanks. So yeah, I have a data and artificial intelligence background. I started my career with a PhD in artificial intelligence in France, in a city called Toulouse, where, you know, one of those cities where sun is shining 7 days a week. I know for some of our Irish audience, this is kind of about science fiction. So I previously worked at multinationals such as Facebook, and I also acted as advisor for SMEs and government departments, helping them to define and implement digital transformation driven by data science and AI. For over 14 years, I have led data and AI projects across different industries, from manufacturing, real estate, government, healthcare, media, etc. And I worked across different roles, from R&D engineer to data scientist to AI lead, tech lead, consultant, etc. And then I founded Smart PMO, which is an artificial intelligence company to fix the problem of large project delays and cost overruns that have been perceived as inevitable.
Great, thank you very much. And we're going to hear more about your business a little bit later in our case study section.
Sure.
So that's the speaker lineup. So now we'll just get into it a little bit. And just to say to the people watching, maybe you're watching live or you're watching the recording, the whole point of this event really is to highlight the property industry and to highlight tech opportunities within it, and to show how there are actually opportunities there. So I know some people who are watching might think, what do you mean by the property sector? Like, do you mean real estate or building houses or what? Because it's quite a varied sector, isn't it, with a value chain. So maybe I'd like to throw that out to the panel, maybe Carol first, or just to answer that. What do we mean by property sector? Sorry, you're just on mute there, so we'll need to unmute you.
I'm glad we're showing our technical prowess this evening. Apologies about that. No, you're absolutely right. It is a varied industry, and I think it's really important to point out that PropTech as a description is probably a little bit misleading, because really we're talking about technology for across the built environment. So real estate and the built environment is everything. You know, it literally touches every economic activity. You know, myself, I've so long been fascinated with the concept of place, because it shapes every life. And you know, I heard the built environment being described as the economics of physical space, and indeed it is. You know, all income generating activities either take place through the built environment or within the built environment. But what's really interesting over the last number of years is that space and place is transitioning to a service. And that's massively exciting, and that's what's opened up the opportunity. So when we talk about prop tech or construction tech or plan tech, there are so many different abbreviations. When we meet a startup who's looking to innovate, you know, we tend to put them into one of a number of categories, and it might be for smart planning, smart design, smart construction. There's so much happening there that smart construction really doesn't do it justice, but digital construction is a huge area in and of itself. But then there's also the smart property transaction, online bidding services. You know, generally there's been a lot of marketing, whether it's using immersive technologies to provide for remote viewings. Smart asset management has long been a priority of facilities managers, and at the moment there has been an increasing focus on what are known as ESG, or environmental, social and governance issues that are driving energy efficiencies for building, and really making sure that buildings are better built, better performed, better managed over the life cycle. But it's really important to note that this sector also takes in smart cities, and there's so much innovation happening around smart cities. So that's a very long way to answer that it's technology for the built environment, and that touches almost everything that we do.
Right. Would anyone else like to have a quick bash at what do we mean by prop tech? Maybe Damien. Oh, I'll have to ask you to unmute yourself there.
All right. Enjoy, everyone's on it tonight. Sorry about that. I suppose where we see our future going is it's all about data, right? So in every business, it's always about the data, and the same in the built environment and in the physical environment. It's all about the data, and whether that's data from IoT sensors, from CCTV security, from access control, from the movement of people in buildings, of the performance of HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, elevator technology, solar panels, whatever, all these different things, all these different data sets are flying around in buildings, and you know, it's a matter of getting a handle on that data, protecting that data, securing the data, and giving back to the client in a method that'll help them make savings and efficiencies and save money. But you know, it's a very broad subject, and artificial intelligence, machine learning is playing a bigger part in it every day.
Thank you very much. And Houssem, just to ask you, so what would be your view if you were to sum up what prop tech is, or what it is to you?
I think I agree with Damien and Carol. It's a broad and huge subject. At Smart PMO, we are focused on a sub area of prop tech, which is construction technology. So you know, construction, it's 20 billion industry market in Ireland, which is contributing to around 10% of the GNP to the Irish economy. And you know, if you look at all the infrastructure in the country, whether it's roads, tunnels, bridges, hospitals, schools, and then all the other type of buildings, residentials, commercial buildings, etc. You know, these are huge projects that are planned and operated by different parties, and these are really complex projects. And then obviously there is a lot of data that's being generated in these projects, and what we focus on is we actually try to utilize the data in order to optimize the planning and the operation of such projects. So we are on the mission to change what's really perceived as under control in construction. One of the objectives we have at Smart PMO is actually to help avoid the overrun and the inefficiency of the New Children's Hospital in Ireland, for example. So we focus on construction technology, and we specialize in building data science and artificial intelligence solutions. So basically collect the data and then use this data to solve high impact problems in the construction sector.
Okay, so far everyone mentioning data as being an important driver behind this prop tech industry. Mihai, I'll just come to you if you have anything to add on what your view of a definition of prop tech would be.
Well, from my point of view, when you say prop tech, you know, as a technical guy, I just see a lot of sensors, a lot of electronics, and a lot of software. So all this together, you know, contribute in developing a smart building, a smarter way of planning, a smarter way of building, a smarter way and a smarter experience for the user that basically it's living in that building, for a tenant that's living in that building. So when you say prop tech, I'm referring to all these devices or all this information that's put together and that's being used to improve the user experience and the tenant experience in that building.
Okay, thank you very much.
I can add some, maybe a good summary in terms of, because if you look at all the buildings and assets in general, so, you know, there is a life cycle of the asset. It starts by design, and then, well, there are different steps, but the three main steps are design, building and construction, and then operation. So all the building operation and management that Damien was referring to, that fits into the operation phase. We focus more on the planning and the construction of the asset.
Okay, Okay, that's good. That's good to get everyone's view. And I suppose there's so much going on in property. It could even be a real estate agency using technology as well. I know I spoke before with Carol about that. So look, now we're going to maybe talk just a little bit about what skills are needed within this sector. And this could be now, I'd like to maybe talk even right down to the entry level. I know we're going to talk about some very advanced stuff like AI, but it would be interesting, I think, for our viewers to know that, if you were looking at this and to start studying a technical discipline such as data analysis or maybe web development, that there are, entry-level roles or even intermediate roles in the property industry. So it'd be interesting to get your view on what type of roles are being created by this sector. Maybe I'll go around to everyone, but maybe go back to Mihai on that just to get your view initially.
Well, you cannot have anything smart without the data, so everything starts with the data. And the first role that it's needed on the PropTech market is a data analyst or a data scientist. These roles are very important because, you cannot have artificial intelligence without having the data. You cannot have machine learning without having the data. So everything starts with that. If you have that, then you can, of course, do anything you want. You can train networks, neural networks to find out if your building is a nice place to live in or whatever you want. But the base thing is the data. You have to start with that. And as a role, as I was saying before, data analyst or data scientist, everything has to start there.
Great. Well, that's probably music to some of our students' ears. I'll maybe come over to Damien just to get your view on. I mean, is there currently a skills gap within the area, or do you have enough? And also, what skills are needed? Maybe just to expand on Mihai's point.
I suppose just continuing on from what Mihai is saying there, data analysts, data scientists, that's where I think majority of roles are going to be with the explosion of IoT devices and IoT sensors in buildings and all that data is being created. That's where the majority of roles are going to be in the next couple of years. And that's just, as Mihai said, a starting point. Moving up the value chain then to senior data scientists, artificial intelligence engineers. That's to get what starting point would be with data scientists.
Very good. And can I just maybe just for the benefit of some of our viewers, you mentioned there IoT, which I know means Internet of Things. Would you mind just briefly letting our viewers know what the Internet of Things is? Just because they probably know about artificial intelligence, but I know that some of them might think, what's IoT?
Well, I suppose the way I'd look at IoT, I'd say it's anything with a pulse. So, or making anything that's normally wouldn't be connected to the internet, connecting that device, whether that's an elevator, whether it's a camera, whether it's a sensor just monitoring the flow of water through a pipe in an apartment or an office or whatever it may be, or it could be a sensor monitoring the air quality, identifying pathogens, obviously topical subject with COVID. It could be temperature, humidity, it could be lighting, the movement of people in the building. The sensors can tell you whether there's any people in that part of the room. Turn the lighting down, turn the heating down. Outside data can be connected to devices as well. Like, like today is a very warm day in Ireland, and it's probably unseasonably warm today. Yesterday was unseasonably cold. And those external data streams can affect how machines are used for heating and lighting, for example. And then connect that with the movement of people as well. And you can use external data. Are the people come back? Is somebody come back to the office? If they are, turn the heating up, turn the lighting on in the hallway before they get there. It's anything. So you can connect anything with IoT sensors and create data. And when you have data, you have lots of data, and you start applying, so we start sanitizing that data, identify the valuable data, because a lot of data is useless. It's not good to anyone, but identifying the valuable data can help people make the best data-driven decisions, and then you can make efficiencies and you can end up saving money.
Great. So it's really what you're saying is you can almost put a sensor in anything, and so many things now are connected to the internet and creating so much data. So if you look at a building, there could be sensors all over it in the various parts, feeding data back. That
brings about another problem, and security. Because all those sensors and connections to the internet creates itself a security vulnerabilities in the system.
Yeah, of course, and the whole industry in that in itself. Right, so I'll just maybe come over to Houssem quickly to see where you think the skills gap would be within the prop tech sector, or yeah.
I think like any other industry, all the data related skill set are required in construction and in prop tech in general. So starting from the data engineer who will build the data set and make sure that the data set is maintained and is of good quality, then to the data scientist or maybe the machine learning engineer who is going to build machine learning algorithms to extract insights and automate processes using the data, etc. And then the data analyst who might build dashboards and user interfaces to facilitate the consumption and the use of the insights, to web developers, etc. So there is a need for every type of skill set and role in the construction and the prop tech sector. And we shouldn't undervalue the role and the need for data engineers or who actually will build the data set and will actually, because we're talking about machine learning and AI, but sometimes the main challenge is not in terms of building the AI or machine learning solution, but it's more about finding the right data to use. And construction is the second less digitized sector after agriculture. So when you're getting in this industry, you shouldn't expect your clients to have a lot of data that's ready to go. So you should always expect to invest a lot of time and efforts to build the data set, and before even you start extracting insights and build algorithms using the data. So data engineers, I would say, are very, very required skill set in prop tech, data analyst as well. Then in terms of the challenges, I would say sometimes some of the tech professionals, whether they're data engineers, software engineers, AI professionals, they find it more challenging to get into the prop tech and the construction sector than others. Because, for example, landing a job in healthcare or financial services, it's sometimes less challenging, because we all deal with banks, we all pay online, we all make transactions online, we all buy and consume medicines. But people lack, the domain expertise when it comes to construction. We know, how we all go to school. We know, the school building, but there is very, very limited knowledge about how this school has been built, the challenges behind this construction project, etc. And I think, especially for data roles where you actually need to couple the tech background with the domain knowledge kind of expertise, getting in the construction sector is a little bit challenging compared to other sectors from this perspective.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that insight. Listen, just to say to anyone watching, we will be taking questions at the end. So if you have a question, just type it into the feed underneath the video you're watching. I know we've had a couple come through already, but we're going to ask those questions just a bit towards the end. So now what I'd like to do is just hand over to our speakers to maybe talk a little bit about a case study of their business, an overview of it, and the background, and also maybe for the benefit of the theme of the event, talk about maybe some of the skills that you have in your business that that you need to operate it. Who'd like to have a go first? Would it be Damien or Houssem? I'll leave it over to you. Maybe Damien, would you like to with Mihai as well? If you'd like to maybe just give us a background exactly, because your business, you're the CEO of Standard Access, so it'd be great just to learn more about what problem it's solving and what is Standard Access.
Sure. Originally, the reason I started the company was I wanted to use technology basically to manage the challenges I met every day. So challenges I had every day was key holding across 15 different locations around Ireland and the UK. During the recession 2008, 2009, collecting rent became a big problem. And that was another issue. Allowing access for maintenance people, real estate agents, inspections, so on and so forth was problematic. And very often keys got into the wrong hands, and I had to bring in locksmiths and had to reissue keys. And it's actually a time-consuming thing is to actually identify who are the right people who have access through these doors or a number of doors. And giving out those keys, it takes time. You've got to identify people. Who are you? Get the paperwork, get the right ID off them, give them a key. You got to do that every time if keys get in the wrong hands. So I wanted to use technology basically to eliminate a lot of the nonsense and duplication of problems across sites. So I spoke to my local college and I said, listen, I want a dashboard. I said, they think about Daft. I said that I want to be able to upload all my spaces, whether they're warehouses, offices, retail units. And I said, I want other landlords to be able to upload their spaces as well. And I said, I want the hardware to allow access through doors. So they started talking about using Bluetooth locks and NFC locks and Bluetooth technology. I just despise because it's power consuming and it's always dropping. There's pairing issues. And at the time, NFC wasn't available on iOS. So I said to the college, would it be really cool? I said, if you could send a burst of encrypted audio from your phone to the door, say, hey, I'm Luke, let me through. So we investigated that. It turns out you could do it. And it turns out it was a way more secure than using NFC or Bluetooth. And I said to the college as well, it might be really cool if you could connect to the consumption of telephone lines, utilities, lighting, heating, and all that. So what I was thinking about all the time was that you could have a Ryanair-based system of renting out offices where someone could use a card or a phone to get access through the door, pay for the usage by the millisecond for using telephone lines and heating and lighting and desks and computers and all that. And at the time, the college said to me that it would just cost too much money and a lot of technology wasn't available to do that. So we just concentrated our focus on access control using encrypted audio. So what I filed a patent on in 2015 was time-restricted monetized access. So you could look for a space, book that space, reserve it, pay for the use of that space, and get the key sent back to your phone, and use your phone then to unlock that door. And we got a patent in America just February, just gone after 5 years and or 6 years. And so then a few months ago, we decided to go back to what we wanted to do 6 years ago, because now the technology is there to do that. And what we're doing is we're building a black box that'll be installed in real estate buildings, because one of the biggest problems in large real estate buildings is that there's you have access control, you have tenant apps, you have landlord apps, you have CCTV and security, you have HVAC systems, you have building management systems, and they're all using different protocols. There's all siloed bits of information. They don't talk to each other. So what we're doing is we're building a universal box basically to plug in to speak to all the different most commonly used protocols, so that we can go into an old building or new building and say, listen, if you already have technology in the building to the landlord, you can plug it into our black box. If you want to buy new technology, you can plug it into the black box, or unplug old technology, or whatever you want to do. So basically, to make it I suppose universal application of hardware, make it agnostic for third-party vendors of hardware and software, and so put in connect to all the data, secure all that data, and give it back to the landlord in one dashboard.
Right. So that's the background of standard access. Really interesting stuff. Bringing in the voice as well. I realized that. So
yeah, it's not voice. It's super, not supersonic. It's I can't think of the word. Mihai, what's the
ultrasound?
Ultrasound. Yeah, so it's an ultrasound pulse that goes from the phone to the door, and it's encrypted as well. So there's a lot of security. We built one of the most secure access control systems in the world. So yeah, it's military grade and above that.
Oh, okay. Well, do you have anything to add to it, Mihai? Or
Well, I just wanted to know that all the technology that we are right now is proprietary. Everything it's been built and designed in house, starting from the electronics up to the software. And because we need a very, very high security level, everything, we don't use third-party libraries or anything like that. So everything has to be developed from, you're asking, what kind of skills would be needed in the future. Well, I think people should start thinking from where the data should be gathered, and that starts with electronics. So people should be thinking in developing code that will work on different type of electronics and gather the data, and then go up, a level up, for the gateways where they can have different type of skills, like it can be Python, it can be Java, it can be anything else for the embedded gateways, and go up to web development, where basically they will use different technology like Angular frameworks or different backends, like for developing the reports and dashboards and everything else. So this is the way I see, the product working, starting from sensors, hardware devices, up to dashboards.
Thank you very much. And I suppose you've mentioned a couple of technologies there, Python and Java, which actually are two technologies or coding languages that we train at the school in various different courses that we put on. So I was heartened to hear you mention those. Okay, so Houssem, maybe I'll come over to you. Would you? You're the CEO of Smart PMO, and maybe if you could just give us a background of what the company is, and the problem you're solving, and maybe some of the skills you're utilizing there. Just a little overview for the viewers.
Yeah, so Smart PMO is an artificial intelligence company that specializes in building AI solutions for to optimize the planning and the control of construction projects. We're based in Ireland, but we have global operations. So we solve the problem of delays and overruns in large infrastructure projects. The statistics say that more than 98% of infrastructure projects around the world are delayed or they run over budget. And the delays and the cost overruns have been perceived as inevitable in the industry because of, large infrastructure projects are complex. There are always a human subjectivity, inaccurate estimation of work, unforeseen risks that happen during the project phase that lead to these problems. And we actually decided to bring our experience across many other industries, applying AI to solve, the complexity problem to the construction sector in order to basically change what's really controllable in construction projects. So back in 2017, we were invited by a government department in the Middle East to help them to roll out, define and roll out an AI strategy across different departments. And they did not ask us to help them with their infrastructure departments, construction and maintenance. So they asked us to help them with other departments. And then after we delivered the contract, we said, we think, we know your business, we know how, the main challenges you're having across all your departments. We think there is, the big opportunity for you is with your construction and infrastructure departments, because this is where you are wasting more budget, and this is where we see the most important inefficiencies. And that wasn't, so obvious to convince them. And then we actually start by building a proof of concept, and we demonstrated how through AI we were able to show them how we can save from 3 to up to 7.2% of the cost per project, and to reduce their delays by up to 38% at that stage. And we were able to streamline a lot of the reporting work and were saving, I think, around 70% of time they were spending on reporting and data cleaning and quality assurance and risk assessment, etc. From there, we generalized the concept and we built a generic platform, and we built a full production level product solution that they are using until now. And then we decided to focus on this market because this is where we saw the huge opportunity. Now we work with both infrastructure owners or project owners, with contractors, and also with engineering consultancies, to actually help them to better plan and control the projects. So we use data from historical projects in whatever software or tool they are using. So we integrate, we've got, we built automated systems that integrate with most of the existing project management software and cost management software in the market. We extract historical project data, then through AI, we analyze this data, we learn experience, and then we extrapolate this experience for new projects where, so at the planning phase, we can, for example, provide accurate benchmarking of cost and schedule time for a project before even any engineering and construction work start. And then at the construction phase, we actually provide real-time risk intelligence, so we can proactively predict and send early alerts of risks around schedule and cost. And then also we recommend actions to mitigate these risks. Different project stakeholders can use this product, from pre-construction manager, the project planners, project managers, the procurement managers, the financial controllers as well. And yeah, so in terms of the challenges, so it's like any other, AI end-to-end project challenges. So we need very strong data engineering skill set to integrate the data and clean the data, and also, transform the data, because when you're collecting data from clients, even for the same client, project data will have different structures, even for the same company. So we need to put a lot of effort to normalize the data and make it at a reasonable quality level, so it could be analyzed and where we could apply machine learning. So data engineering is one of the hot required roles in the company. Also data machine learning engineers as well. I would say machine learning researchers, because we will never find ready-to-go machine learning algorithms that we can use to solve our problems. So we really need to invent, we really need to be innovative and come up with new algorithms, because we haven't found any existing models or algorithms that solve these problems. So so machine learning modeling is also one of the roles that we are hiring for currently at Smart PMO.
Great, thank you very much. So both of you really mentioning data there, and really saying that the industry is crying out for data analysts, which might be of interest to the people watching. Carol, I just might come to you, just if you wanted to give just our viewers a little view into the work that you're doing at PropTech Ireland, or for that matter, Property District, just to maybe let them know some of the good work you're doing before we move on to look at the future of the industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, look, one of the things that we do is to, one of the really important things is actually to raise awareness about maybe some of the digital transformation that needs to happen. So just as both companies there were talking, I'm very conscious of how much things have moved on over the last 5 or 6 years. So from that point of view, it might be helpful maybe to share with some of your students I work with independent estate agents. So let's bring it back to a really quite an easy level. I work with independent estate agents, bringing them along the digital transformation journey. And I can remember a couple of years ago, the leading software, this leading CRM software that was used across estate agencies. It was so convoluted. It had been built over about a 15 or 14 year period. It was so convoluted. Things had been added onto it that the creator of this software told me very proudly that it takes most agents up to 5 years to know how to use their system properly. And he was very proud of this. And I thought that has to be the definition of failure. You know, when we look at how intuitive, you know, I mean, UX wasn't even part of the conversation there. And yet that was the technology that most estate agents who were using technology, a lot of them weren't using anything, but so that's what they were dealing with. So actually they were in a position that the only technology available to help their business was really a very convoluted, you know, quite poorly put together, but unfortunately was really the only one tailored for the Irish market. So that definitely put people off, you know. And one of the other ones I remember meeting with an estate agent in Wexford, and he said to me that he was faced with the choice of having to engage somebody to do valuations, but there was such a low value. This was, you know, following the crash. Valuations, I think, were coming in at about 130 euros. There was no expenses paid to travel out to the properties. So it was a low value activity, and yet estate agents needed it in order to keep income coming in through the doors, particularly those estate agents that don't deal with lettings. And this estate agent told me that a client had introduced him to their teenage son, who was apparently good with technology. And this teenager built an app for the estate agent to automate some of the valuations, so that when the estate agent was standing out in a house, could collect all the data required, and it would auto-generate this valuation form that had previously been taking hours to do. And you know, in place of having a full-time professional staff member who would have had to be licensed under the Property Services Regulatory Authority, they then had an app built by a teenager who didn't know anything about the property industry, and it solved that problem. So I suppose, and the reason I want to share that with you is just to show you the spectrum of where we're at in terms of technology. You know, and only in the last few days, I actually spoke with Matterport, who would be one of the leading providers of VR tours. And we actually have some great Irish providers as well, but they're a global leader. And, you know, they're working on the basis that there's 4 billion buildings on the planet. And that they mean actual buildings. So some of these are subdivided into multiple and more units. So they're estimating somewhere around 20 billion properties across 4 billion buildings. So that's just, again, to give the students and people partaking in your course just to understand the scale of opportunity here. You know, it really is quite an extensive opportunity. And, you know, you ask why does PropTech Ireland exist? PropTech Ireland really was more important 4 and 5 and 6 years ago, when estate agents and commercial agents and facilities managers, they didn't understand what could be automated, what could be digitized, and that's what was really important. But it's interesting. Only in the last few days, I spoke with one of the largest and leading estate agencies in Ireland. And they actually said to me, one of the issues they're having in terms of PropTech is 2 things. One is that there's too much choice now. So for example, so when they go to try solve a problem, there are too many. And now when they say too much choice, they mean half a dozen. So it's not like an oversaturated market, but even that is considered too much choice. But the second thing is that the technologies promise a lot. And that's why it's really important to work with the the providers that are longer established, so they've actually delivered into the marketplace and they have this area of expertise. Because one of the really big worries is around, I think it was Damien there mentioned that, and Mihai, that there has been this huge rise in the number of IoT, Internet of Things solutions that have been deployed across all sectors of the built environment, including smart cities. So all of these devices, I suppose the simplest way to say it is that, our streets, our pavements, our buildings, they're all done until they're connected. So it's the connectivity that creates this smart environment, but it's also what creates points of vulnerability. So actually, that's something that we've been speaking to the team at Standard Access about. And I think it's a really important one to touch on, because you mentioned, I think you made a comment there that securing the transmission of data is almost an industry in and of itself, and there's a certain amount of truth in that. So Damien and Mihai, I might bring you in on that, because that's such an important issue that we cannot discuss the proliferation of IoT devices without understanding the importance of security. And that's something that we haven't gotten into properly really this evening, but it's such an important area. So Damien or Mihai, you might just jump in and maybe give an update on that sector.
Yeah, fine point. I'll hand over to you there, Mihai or Damien.
Well, I'll say something about it. The thing is, right now there's billions of IoT devices that probably they were designed at the beginning and they were installed in buildings and everywhere. So those devices were not security designed. Like right now, for example, in Standard Access, everything we are designing, starting from electronics to software, we use the concept security first. So everything has to be designed from security point of view. But getting back to all those old devices that were installed in buildings, those devices were not designed security first. Those devices were designed to do the work and just it. Get the data, send it to a gateway or send it to a server, and that's it. Well, that puts them at risk, because those devices, most of them are installed there for years, and they do their job, they do it right, and nobody really cares about if they are vulnerables or anything like that. They just care if they send the data and they do it correctly. So security in PropTech, it's not really, well, it's not given it was not given a very high importance at the beginning or at all. And that's why, from time to time we see, in the news or whatever, that millions of IoT devices were found vulnerable and, can be hacked and everything like that. Or, even Intel chipset, they had a problem. They had a problem, they found a flaw in the hardware itself that can be hacked. So all these devices, everything that's being developed should be security first designed. So this is what I wanted to say. We should start with security first when designing anything in PropTech or starting with the hardware and software. Yeah,
would anyone else like to comment on that?
Yeah, it's actually becoming an issue in the last 18 months. One of the biggest brands in the world, they sell a smart home device, and it was hacked, and only for 6 hours. But these hackers managed to unlock the front doors of I don't know how many millions of properties around the world with a simple hack. It was started. I think it was 6 hours, 7 hours. It was fixed, but that was just one thing. There's already attacks happening in buildings in big cities around the world where hackers are just hacking in just for the hell of it, and they're switching off the lights, they're unlocking the doors, they're interfering with the air conditioning, which is now a major fear issue, I suppose, and security issue because of COVID. But yeah, it's becoming very quickly. It's probably going to become one of the biggest targets in the world. Like the biggest target in the world is probably banks for attacks from hackers, but now I think in the future it's going to be real estate buildings because there's no security built into these devices, and it's a problem, but that's a challenge and becomes an opportunity for landlords who invest in property security around transmission of data and IoT devices. Is that if they can go to their tenants and say, listen, we have the best security in the market, we're going to charge you an extra couple of euros per square foot but you know, you'll be safer, and your people will be safe, and your data will be safe.
Yeah, good point. Just to be clear, would this open up opportunities for cybersecurity professionals, be they entry level or even advanced, to work in the industry? Just also, I should take the opportunity to say we are developing a course in cybersecurity, and we're rolling it out in some of our other schools, so it will be something we do. But it'd be interesting to hear from the professionals here. What
Yeah.
would that open up avenues in your industry?
Yeah, I might let Mihai come in there. Definitely cybersecurity and network security will be a major growth area in the next couple of years. But Mihai, I think you'll be a better place to answer that.
Well, not only security software wise, but it should also be some openings on the hardware security, because everyone today, they are talking about cybersecurity, and when you say cybersecurity, you are referring to networks, or software or anything. But from hardware point of view or electronics point of view, nobody is thinking in that, or there's few people thinking in hardware security. So apart from software and it should be also hardware security that should be taken care of.
Yeah, that's a fine point, I suppose, especially when you're talking in context with the built environment and then IoT sensors on things like that. That's really interesting. Houssem, do you have a view on any of those issues? Oh, I'll just have to ask you to unmute.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, we don't have issues with cybersecurity. Basically, we use data, we extract data, and then we store data on the cloud that's fully secured. But we have there are other challenges related to security, which is more about so data security. So we are in the B2B market. So our clients would be companies, businesses, and they are sometimes, or well, in most of the cases, there are concerns about sharing their data so we can apply AI, analyze it, etc. So we bring on board a data security expert. He's one of our advisors, and he's involved in the company as well. So we designed a secured data infrastructure so that corporate clients can share their data in a secured way, and they are sure that their data is not used for different purposes. So we are only use the data that we agreed and for the goals and the objectives that we have agreed. So we deal with data security concerns, but also there are, from a client perspective, sometimes security concerns, it's more about, some clients think that, their data is not secured because they think that, you might use their data in order to maybe access to some business sensitive information.
Yeah.
And that's a different concern actually. But for B2B, AI solution for B2B, I would say data sharing is a very important concern, and setting up a very robust data security infrastructure is key. In our company, for example, we will expect data engineers joining the team to have some data security certification. Okay,
now thank you very much for that. So look, I'll just move on to the final section before we get to the questions from the audience. One is now, what I'd like to throw it out to the panelists. What do you view as the future for prop tech in Ireland specifically? Maybe I'll come to Carol first, and then we can just, if everyone can have we'll come around to everyone quickly before we come to the questions.
Honestly, Luke, that is such a big question, the future of prop tech, because as we've mentioned, it fits into all of these different categories. We're seeing really exciting things happening on the smart cities side of things, being largely led by Delve, part of Sidewalk Labs, that's owned by Alphabet, which is Google's parent company. They're doing some truly innovative things, closer to home. Really, what we're seeing as the major shift, one of the things I'm very aware of is that when we talk about new technologies and the opportunities that are there, it can take a short number of years for that to filter through. So some of the things that we were highlighting as opportunities a number of years ago really gained traction this year. So because of COVID, over the last 12 months, remote viewings, online property transactions, they really became commonplace. And yet that technology has existed for a number of years, probably 5, 6, 7 years at this stage, but it's only in the last 12 to 14 months that it became ubiquitous across the property transaction. So we've discussed at length here tonight that data is changing so much. So one of the big shifts I see around that is a deeper understanding of the value of data, because since GDPR legislation was introduced in Ireland, data was very much seen as a liability to be managed as opposed to a resource to be leveraged. So we're seeing a greater appreciation of that, which will mean better treatment, but it also means that actually we will be getting those actionable insights that we knew potentially were available. So there's a much greater appreciation of that across almost all levels of the planning, construction and property industries. In terms of, sometimes the innovations that are introduced are not as revolutionary as we might like to think. So for example, in Ireland, our planning system is pretty antiquated, but there's been a new planning regulator appointed in recent years, and that planning regulator is really trying to digitise elements of the planning process. So only today, the Office of the Planning Regulator in Ireland launched a plan making calculator, which estimates the time frame for making or reviewing a city or county development plan. Now, this is not very sophisticated stuff, but to me, it's very important, because this is the first move we're seeing that the government is actually trying to digitize elements of a very old system. Unfortunately, it can't all happen at once. So a number of years ago, I was definitely more impatient, whereas now I can see these small initiatives as being massively important in changing the collective mindset of the industry. Once the planning process is digitized, that we don't need these paper plans, then suddenly things like drone fly-throughs of sites or virtual reality plans will become more important. And one of the things we didn't touch on today, which I think is going to be huge in terms of the future of real estate, we've only discussed the physical assets, but actually digital twins will become necessary for every building, not just every new building, a newly developed, a newly delivered building. So I don't know if there's anybody on the panel that can discuss that today, but in terms of where I see the future, certainly looking at the digital assets that will be not comparable value, but certainly of very real value, and that's a digital twin. So I'm actually surprised that didn't come up on the panel today. That might be just because we didn't have a lot of time, but yeah, it's a very broad question, but certainly better use of existing technologies, a greater appreciation of data, and we're starting to see more systematic changes, and they're so important because even though they might only be in very small ways, they actually allow for greater innovation. So they open the door to innovation from a governmental point of view. So that's a really important one. So that and digital twins, they're my expectations for innovation in the sector over the next year or so.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Houssem, well, just very briefly, because we'll be running out of time, but just what would be your view of the future of prop tech in Ireland, maybe specifically, or even the world?
Yeah, I think more, first of all, more digital adoption, because there are a lot of key players in the construction and property industries that are still behind in terms of digital adoption. I would say data it's the present, and it's going to be the future. There are data that's being generated currently in every in every construction site, in every building. And then with the, the emerging technologies like IoT and blockchain technologies, etc., that's making more data generated and more data available for analytics, etc. I think the challenge will be the change management and the adoption of these innovative solutions and the understanding of the impact that these solutions are delivering to the industry.
Very good. And I'll maybe come to you, Damien, on if you have a view on this.
Like Carl is saying there, it's such a broad subject. There's so many different things where things will go. But something that Carl mentioned there about digital twin, that's part of our product development in the next 12 months. Is the part of our new black box is the part of it will be offering a digital twin to our clients of the building, of the operations of the building in real time.
Yep. And maybe for the benefit of people watching, just briefly, what is a digital twin? What's the product you're offering, as I said?
So basically, digital twin is it's like a mirror image of the building.
Yep.
That you could go into, let's say, a building or a room, or see by the use of the building in terms of performance of electricity, of heating, of lighting, of the elevators, of the consumption of electricity, of the movement of people, and the effect that has on the performance of the building, and the emissions. So many different things, but it can all be visualized better. Basically, to I suppose to take your blueprints and put them on a computer screen in front of you.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting stuff. We'll have to keep an ide out for Standard Access's new digital twin product.
Digital twins are already very common in construction phase of buildings, but this be more in the operations and the after of building a building, and for all buildings too, but it hasn't really been done yet in stage.
Okay, and then maybe just come over just to Mihai at the end. Do you have a view on where the future of the industry might go, even with the roles that are in it, or even the technologies that prop tech in Ireland? Or
well, I do believe that more machine learning and AI is going to be adopted in like I said, in building or buildings, and also like because of technologies, and I'm talking about electronics and sensor, it's like becoming smaller and smaller. More data will become available, and more sensor will be there to offer more data to the people. So basically, I do believe that, like we said at the beginning, the data science, data skills are going to be needed in the future.
Okay, now we'll just quickly, before we wrap up, come on to some questions. So I'll just quick. I've been getting messages through on the phone of questions coming through. So we had Alexander Pepe, who has asked, maybe I can field this one because there's actually two questions around the same area, but I'm maybe field Alexander's when he said, why is it so difficult to find entry-level jobs in data analytics? Well, it can be hard, I suppose, that I think a lot of people can find you're sending your CV out and you're not getting a response, or you're maybe sending it without the right keywords, and these algorithms are scanning it and not even sending it through to the hiring manager. That can happen a lot these days. And we have, I suppose, at the Career Centre, what we've tried to do to combat that is we help you write your CV if you're looking for a job as a data analyst and you're one of our graduates, and your online presence. And then we also try and get your CVs out to hiring companies to get your foot in the door. And if you get an interview, we'll have a coaching session with you the day before to kind of to go through what questions might be asked, get your answers ready, and also get some questions you can ask so you can be confident in the interview. So you're right, it can be hard even to get those entry-level roles. Sometimes they can be the most competitive. So that's how we try and help you. And we also had one come through, which was in relation to that from Michael, who's asking, are there entry-level data analytics roles in the property sector? So that's a question I can throw out to the panel.
Yeah, so we'll be hiring probably from midsummer onwards for data analysts and some junior developers and some senior roles as well. Mihai, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, we will be hiring, especially for data training. We need people there, and it's hard to find as first of all, in order to get hired as a data analytics guy or girl, you have to kind of know the industry. That's why many people, when they send the CV, if they don't put anything there that's related to prop tech, most of the recruiters are not going to take that into consideration, because basically when you do a data analysis, you have to know a little bit about the data you are doing the analysis on. Okay, you cannot, for example, do an analysis about I don't know, grinding sensors, and you are applying for, you cannot have knowledge about grinding sensor or electronic sensors, and you are applying for data analytics about the user behavior. You know what I'm saying? So you have to have a little bit of knowledge on what you are applying.
Yeah, that's a good point. Houssem, do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I think yeah, we are hiring at different levels, junior, mid, and senior. I would say as a data analyst, you shouldn't expect to have entry-level role where you will be assigned tasks to build very advanced AI and machine learning algorithms. So you need really to progress across different responsibilities. Maybe start with building data pipelines or dashboards. So, and then understand better the industry, as said Mihai, and then maybe start shadowing some AI senior AI engineer task, etc. So I think it's a strategic planning of career. So so by maybe 3 to 5 years you will get to AI developer, but then at the start you might start with different roles and different tasks actually.
Okay, actually, I might ask a question there to either yourself or Mihai or Damien. So what I kind of, when you talk about data analysts in your company, what kind of languages are you using? Are you talking about things like SQL, SQL, Tableau, Python? Is that the type of thing, that the type of skills they'd need, or are there any other ones?
So we, for the backend, for the data pipelines, we mainly use Python. Then, of course, we need to deal with other cloud technologies with Python, like Microsoft Azure or AWS. In terms of machine learning modeling, we mainly use Python. In terms of Tableau, we prefer to build our standalone web application using open source web development languages like Angular, etc., React, etc. But some clients would like us to integrate our predictive insights and models within their in-house dashboards. So then we will have to integrate our solution with Tableau or Power BI, and that's a very common scenario, especially in construction, because a lot of construction contractors use the Microsoft stack in terms of Microsoft Teams and 365, etc., for document management. And then when they need to build dashboards, their go-to choice would be Power BI. So Power BI, it's very used in construction.
Yeah, and Damien, or do you have anything to add to that? Oh,
Yeah, you want to come in there?
Yeah.
We are basically okay. So we are using for the our embedded, for the electronic devices, we are using embedded C, basically. Like I was saying before, for the gateway, that's basically getting all the data from the devices and everything. We are using Python, C or Java, and for our dashboards and everything else, we are using basically for the backend Java or PHP. Tied together with Oracle, SQL Server, or MySQL. These are the three databases we are using. And for the front end, we are using JavaScript with Angular, or basically at JavaScript. Most of our dashboards and everything are built in Angular. So this is what technology we are using in Standard Access right now.
Right, and for anyone watching, if you're hearing all these acronyms of Python and Java, and you're not sure what they are, if you can get in touch with the Dublin Coding School and check out our website, which is dublincodingschool.ie, and either myself or one of our counselors will be happy to talk to you about it and let you know, because actually everything they're mentioning here are actually topics on our courses. And we just finally, one more question here come through from Sinead, who's typed it in there, which is basically, are there opportunities for web developers? We talked a lot about data, I suppose, and maybe that's a question they've asked, or the people building websites, are there opportunities for them? Maybe I'll come to Mihai or first on that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put it this way. You know, you cannot have a dashboard, you know, like without, you know, basically most of the dashboards today are being built using web technologies. Okay. When we are talking about Angular and JavaScript, you know, we are talking about HTML5. That's, you know, those are web technologies. So displaying the data is being used, you know, using web technologies. Of course, you have the backend that's processing all the data and everything there, but today web technology, and you can do, I don't know if many people know that, but you can also do machine learning and AI using web technologies. You know, like doing Node.js, using Node.js, you can train a network. Of course, it's not going to be the same of training it in Python or anything else, but you can use Node technology and you can use TensorFlow like for lights. You know, it's a lighter technology that can work on phones or web apps, you know, so why not? You know, you can use it without any problem.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Listen, I'll just start closing up now. But before I do, and maybe just talk a little bit more about the school, I'd like to just go around quickly again. Damien, just for the purposes of the viewers who might be watching, how do you get in touch with Standard Access? Well, no, is there a website, or how can they get in touch? Or
visit the website. It's standardaccess.co or info@standardaccess.co. Get us as well.
Great. And Houssem, what's your website and email for your business, just in case anyone's interested in following up?
Yeah, absolutely. So website is smartpmo.io, and the email is info@smartpmo.io. And if you are interested in a data scientist or data analyst role, you can send your CV to our email.
Okay, great. And Carol, just if people are interested in the association, is there just a website and an email address where people can get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. If you just Google PropTech Ireland, you'll come to it. The address is www.prop-tech.ie. And just one point there, you asked the question about web developers. I can tell you that not only is there demand, but actually at the moment there's chronic demand for good web developers. And in fact, what we're seeing at the moment is a shortage, because we're seeing the emergence of platforms over more traditional one-way websites, and they all need an element of custom build and development. So actually that's a skill that's definitely in short supply across the industry at the moment.
Great. Well, that's good to hear. I'll maybe just talk just a quick one about our courses then. So we have a course in web development, which will be going. We put together, by the way, all of our courses. They're small groups, so we have groups of 10 to 12 students in each course. And the reason for that is so it can be as interactive as possible, and you know your voice will be heard, and to make sure that questions can go through. We find maybe some schools have 30 in a group. It's just far too many. And the other thing to point out is that all our courses are led by industry professionals. So for instance, our data analytics lecturing team are working at Bank of Ireland, TikTok, guy who's ex-Facebook, also Wayfair, the large American retailer. So they're senior data analysts in these companies, and they're passing on their knowledge. They're not academic lecturers, they're professionals working in the field. The courses in web development, data analytics, also software testing are going at the end of this month, but we also launch them every month. So you can join a group of 10 or 12 then. If you do book on, we have something called a second chance. So if you sit the course, which is intensive, it's 3 months long, you get the chance to sit it again within 12 calendar months for free. If you wanted to brush up or maybe add to your portfolio. By the way, I mentioned portfolio. These are practical courses where we want you to build a portfolio. So you're building up work you've done that you can demonstrate to future employers. So in web development, you've built a website. We actually have a project using AI technology where you'll build that and demonstrate what you've done. In data analytics, you'll solve business problems using SQL, Tableau, and Python, which has been mentioned so much tonight, that you can demonstrate. And software testing as well, you'd be set a challenge, a test, and get the results. So you can demonstrate that technical work. So that's really what our courses are all about. And I mentioned before the Career Centre. That's where we, all of our students are also enrolled in that. And that's where we help you with your CV, your online presence. And then we also share your CVs with our partner companies. So companies maybe such as Tonight, but other companies that we partnered with, Helios Information, who's a supply chain management company. We've partnered with companies like Bradley Design, who are the large advertising firm in Ireland. Also Propylon, who are in legal data management. So right across the spectrum, we partner with companies who are hiring graduates. Also, just to point out, we do train you to an entry level. So we're not saying that we're going to train you to an advanced level. It's all entry level roles. And with that, I think that's really it. I'll say our website is dublincoding.ie. You can reach us at info@dublincoding.ie. Also, you can email me, luke@dublincoding.ie. You can get a free, by the way, career consultation. If you get in touch with us, we're happy to talk to you for half an hour to an hour about what you've done so far in your career, what you'd like to do, and to advise you. And it's not a sales pitch, it's genuinely is a career consultation to try and see where you're going and to see if it is relevant to you. Because look, these courses aren't always for everybody, and it's maybe worth the call to find out. We're always happy to talk to anyone. So we hope you enjoyed that and learned a bit more about the property sector. I want to say thanks again to all the speakers, especially Carol, who've helped pull that brilliant panel together. I don't think it's often you get 3 CEOs on the one panel talking about their industry. So with that, I'd like to say thank you and good night.
Thanks, Luke.
No worries. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.